Roscoe was watering the geraniums in the pots on the patio. He was taking his time, enjoying the light breeze that brought with it the fragrance of the climbing rose that grew up the side of the cottage. But there was something unusual in the air. Now what was it? The back door was open, and from inside the cottage came the sound of... Well, that's it. That's what's different. It was quiet. It was the sort of quiet that didn't belong in a mid-afternoon. Usually, by this time of day, there would be a soft shuffle of feet, the whisper of paper being turned, and the faint, serious murmuring of bunnies deep in discussion about what they'd be having later for their dinner. Today, though, the air held still. Not empty, just waiting. Roscoe slowed as he reached the back door and peered inside. On the low table by the window, several sheets of paper were laid out neatly. Drawings of hills and flowers and winding paths covered them. Careful outlines, confident shapes, but something about them felt unfinished. Not wrong, simply paused. The bunnies sat at the table, and each one was looking intently at the tip of the pen they were holding. Roscoe stepped inside quietly, as though the moment might scatter if he moved too quickly. "Bunnies," he said softly, "what's a doing of?" The bunnies looked up. Millie Moonbeam lifted her pen and gave it a small, hopeful shake. Floyd pressed his pen to the paper and tried a gentle scribble. The pen made a sound like a dry leaf brushing stone. Nothing appeared. Roscoe leaned closer. He could see it now. The pen tips were pale. The colours, once bold and bright, had thinned to almost nothing. "They've run out," said Berry. Not sadly, just factually. "Not all at once," said Caratina. "The blue went first." "Then the green," said Floyd. "The red lasted the longest." Roscoe nodded. He turned the pen over in his paw, testing its weight. It still felt like a pen. It just didn't behave like one anymore. Roscoe pulled up a small stool and sat with them. He studied the drawings carefully, the spaces left open, the lines waiting patiently for something to arrive. There was an outline of a cottage roof with no tiles, clouds waiting to billow, and meadows that stretched for miles in search of lost yellow buttercups. Outside, a breeze moved through the garden. A petal fell from the old climbing rose and spiraled and twirled its way down into Roscoe's lap. He noticed its colour first, a warm creamy pink, then its shape, slightly curled at the edges. He picked it up. "That's a good pink," he said, mostly to himself. The bunnies leaned in and looked. Millie Moonbeam's gaze wandered around the kitchen. She noticed a strand of yellow twine peeking from a basket by the door. Floyd spotted a wrinkly, dark green cabbage leaf resting on the windowsill, waiting to be taken out to the compost. The bunnies looked around, taking in colours they hadn't really noticed before. No one hurried. No one was in a rush. The bunnies started to gather things slowly. A red button that had been waiting patiently in a jar. A scrap of blue paper saved from an old envelope. The silvery inside of a seed packet. A soft brown feather found near the hedge. A soft mound of cotton wool from the cupboard over the sink. Each thing was chosen carefully. Each thing felt right. Back at the table, Roscoe brought out a small pot of glue. The bunnies dipped their brushes gently, pressing and holding, lifting and adjusting. Fingers stuck briefly, then came free again with quiet giggles. The pictures began to change. Colours weren't flat anymore. They rose and dipped. The cabbage leaf made grass feel alive. Yellow twine curved into sandy riverside paths. The petal became a sky that looked as though it might smell faintly of summer. The cotton wool filled the outline of the cloud in billowy, pillowy puffs. Delicate dabs of glue on fragile petals and leaves needed care and attention. Some things didn't land exactly where they were meant to, but that was all right too. When the last piece was placed, the bunnies leaned back. The pictures were finished. Not the way they had first imagined, but finished all the same. Roscoe looked at them for a long moment. Each one felt complete in its own particular way. He noticed how the light caught on different surfaces, how shadows settled in tiny folds and edges. "These feel like pictures you can almost step into," he said. The bunnies liked that. They laid the pictures out carefully to dry. Glue brushes were rinsed and set upright in a jam jar, their bristles fanning out. The odd bits of ribbon, buttons, twigs and shells they had left over were put carefully in a little bowl and stored in the messy drawer for when they'd be needed next time. With most things tidied away, Roscoe said, "Bunnies, all that looking and choosing and gluing and sticking has given me quite the rumbling in my tumblington. Who's for a bit of cake? Oh, a piece of Battenberg for me. A chocolate Swiss roll for me. I'll have one of Nash's iced buns." Heaven. Roscoe set out the plates and Millie Moonbeam prepared a jug of elderflower cordial. Floyd brought out the curly straws. Later on, as evening drew closer, the cottage grew quiet again. A good, settled quiet this time. Outside, the garden rested. Inside, the pictures waited. When the light softened and the lanterns were lit, softening the corners of the room, Roscoe warmed himself by the fire, crackling in the hearth. He was thinking about the drawings. Some days, he thought, things don't end. They simply pause, long enough for petals, leaves, and bits of twine to join in. The bunnies were sitting comfortably on their beanbags, now with a friendship ear in downy paws. Upstairs their beds were calling, patchwork quilts ready to be tucked under chinnigans. Downstairs the pictures lay patiently, ready to continue their story. And the cottage, holding it all, felt just right. All was snug. All was well. Night-night.